All right, a lot to get to. Let's jump this thing off. And want to start it off with Martin. Yesterday we had a conversation about the top 10 quarterbacks. You know, they had that list that they put out 100 best players in the NFL, and then they go position by position. And they had the top 10 at each position, and of course they start with we had the quarterback conversation. So Mahomes is number one, which was ask you at least. To me, that was to be expected. Maybe to you, it wasn't.
No, it's. Okay. I mean, I know that he lost the Super Bowl last year. Mm-hmm. But the king stays the king for a little while longer than that.
So we're on the same page. That was my point, was he earned that rarefied air where when Tiger became less of Tiger, he was still Tiger Woods, so you still took him over the field. When Brady finally started getting old, or maybe Yarn wasn't good, you still said, no, I'm taking Tom Brady. And LeBron, for the most part, up until maybe 3-4 years ago, you still say, nah, I still take LeBron. Serena Williams, same thing. They earned that rarefied air where you say, nah, until they're beaten, I'm rolling with that guy, and Patrick Mahomes isn't that. The other guy who kind of was interesting on that list, because their top 4 or 5, four at least you knew. It was Burrow. I'm not in any order right now, but Burrow, it was Allen, and it was Lamar Jackson. And then the 5th was interesting, Jaden Daniels. Because you're like, oh, okay, rookie year was spectacular, but rookie. Some of these other guys got some longevity in the game. And at 9 was where it got interesting, because that's where you found the reigning Super Bowl champion quarterback, Jalen Hurts, at number 9. And then, of course, you have Nick Sirianni come out, and I'm just going to paraphrase from him, basically saying, hey, it's a joke that he's here at that low. It's a joke kind of how he's perceived in his league. He's done enough. It's a joke that people kind of criticize what we ask of him for this team. They use that against him. So when you have that polling, you have that Nick Sirianni sticking up for his guy, where do you come out on Jalen Hurts as we sit here, a couple of months away from this upcoming season?
Well, I think it's a nuanced conversation, and that's why I think Nick Sirianni has no chance at being able to do it. And I like how you paraphrase what he did say, because we can't say what he actually said over the radio.
Yeah.
But the idea that Nick Sirianni would swear about this, shocking.
That's Nick. That's
right.
That's,
exactly.
Yeah, that's Nick being Nick.
Now that you've won, good luck. That's all we'll see going forward. But the thing is, like, if I'm doing an expansion draft and I have the number 1 overall pick, I'm picking a lot of players before I get to Jalen Hurts. I'm picking a lot of quarterbacks before I get to Jalen Hurts. However, that does not mean what Nick Sirianni is saying in this moment is untrue. What they ask him to do, he executes at an incredibly high level. And the tush push, that's a real thing. I can't stand it personally. I don't think it's football. But I clearly am on the losing end of this battle. And you know why? Because the team that keeps running it wins the Super Bowl. Yep. And you know what? We'll just have them doing it. I just wait for the worst case scenario, and I'll just point and tell everyone, I told you so. But until then, I have to entertain this conversation because it is a weapon.
It ain't going nowhere.
It's not going anywhere, despite all the votes to the contrary or for positive. So, but if you just evaluate just at the quote-unquote playing of the quarterback position, and it's not a knock to Jalen Hurts' ability, or, it's just there are guys that are just flatly better than him at the things that I think you ask a quarterback to do on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. Now, I think he makes up for some of those things in, like, leadership and being steady. I think the fact that Nick Sirianni has so much success as a coach that kind of goes off the hinges at times is because Jalen Hurts is his quarterback, right? I think that when you got your wide receiver reading self-help books and your coach doing Fly Eagles Fly to the fans, somebody's got to be the adult in the room, and I think Jalen Hurts does that and does the great job for that organization. So, 9th best to me, if I'm Nick Sirianni, I'm saying, look, you know what? He was first best at the end of the year, and that's where we're going to go with that, right? I wouldn't be going and addressing all of this because it's like, at some point you protest too much because you know what we're saying is true. Go back to them when he throws over look at Jalen Hurts' numbers when he throws over 30 times. They 2-2. Mm-hmm. They don't win. You know what I'm saying? Go back to last year. When they scale him back and they run the ball more, they win more consistently. And that, is it a knock to Jalen Hurts? Whatever, if you want to call it that or not. That's just what it is. But the fact of the matter is, 2 summers ago, we were talking about nobody wants to pay a running back. That next summer, Saquon Barkley went insane through the Eagles offense and won them a Super Bowl. And so if you're telling me that, what is it? Do you have the best everything?
I mean, that's how he would feel. I'm sure if you ask him best offensive line, best defensive line, best running back, and in his mind, best quarterback, clearly he's going to feel that way. But I get that. So you mentioned a couple of things. Let me break it down like this. I said this yesterday. Jalen Hurts if we're going to be equal, then he does deserve a bit more praise or less disrespect. Here's what I mean. If you ask who's played the best quarterbacking, who's been quarterbacking the best, who's been owning the position, it has not been Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has been the best at a couple of things. Patrick Mahomes has been the best at third down. He's had the best QBR with that, and he also had the best when it came percentage. I think it's 53% completion percentage on or first downs on third down. He makes those passes. So ultimately what he's saying is when we need it done, he gets it done. When we need a win, he gets a win. And to the tune of, despite what Rob Parker will say, 15-2. To the tune of getting back to the Super Bowl when everyone want to say, man, something's off. They're not winning at a high clip or blowing people out. He doesn't look great. He just gets to the Super Bowl. So if we're putting all of that on him as far as winning, and that's why I believe he's still number one, you believe it, even though Lamar Jackson played incredibly better football, Josh Allen's played better football, Joe Burrow's played better football over the last couple of seasons, you just have that faith in him. Then to me, we also have to put it on Jalen Hurts as well. I've been critical of him. He's not the guy necessarily you think you'd want in a duel or a shootout. However, if what we ultimately grade quarterbacks by is wins, the brother gets wins to the tune of 6-3 in the playoffs. You saw what he done in the Super Bowls, multiple Super Bowls. He won one, lost one, outplayed Mahomes in the one he lost, just outperformed him again in the one that he won, and he's played very well. 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions in the playoff runs for him. He continues to be dynamic at running the football, the best short yardage runner in football. 3 seasons of 10 touchdowns or more.
I can't stand that you can say that and it be a fact.
I know.
Because of this tush-push foolishness.
But here's
Cam
the thing.
Newton, I feel terrible for every running quarterback before you.
Here's the thing. He's the one doing it. Everybody's got a chance. 31 other teams. Only one other team is semi-proficient at it in the Bills. And that ended up costing them in the postseason trying to do it a couple of times. So he does that well. You mentioned another thing, leadership. When he puts on them dad khakis, you know what time it is. He's about business. Even when they have disgruntled receivers or they're getting into it, him and A.J. Brown, they find a way to work through it.
Always says the right thing.
He always says the right thing, and that's a part of that position, as
Absolutely.
you know.
I agree.
Coming up there, despite what just happened in the locker room, when I come out there, answering questions, boom, 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 diffusing things, putting out fires. So we do have to put more respect on his name. Now, when it comes down to rankings, look, people are also going to look at talent. I believe if you just watch them, you fell from Mars, you knew football, and you watch it, you would say, oh, that guy, Jaden Daniels, is more talented. Joe Burrow is more talented. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. And I think that's where the issue comes with him. But if we're going to say ultimately, Terry Bradshaw is highly respected and heralded because he has 4 Super Bowl rings, because all he really did was win so much. He wasn't the best arm talent. He wasn't the guy when you think of just passing. But he won. He was perfect for that team, for the Steelers of the 70s. So and that is what Jalen Hurts. He's perfect for this team that wants to beat you up, run the ball, stop the run, and find ways to win games. He's perfect for this team. My last point, Martin.
Mm-hmm.
You look at a guy like Tom Brady. Well, there's been iterations of him. He was dink and dunk, manage the game, let's win. Then he became, I can air this thing out when you need to for years. And to me, Jalen Hurts right now, maybe he can start airing it out when he needs to. But right now, this is what I am. This is what I need to be, to the tune of way more wins than the guys in the postseason than y'all keep putting ahead of me, except for Patrick Mahomes.
But part of the reason why there's way more wins in the postseason is because he doesn't have to play Patrick Mahomes, nor Lamar Jackson, nor Josh Allen. Part of the reason why Patrick Mahomes is still number 1 on this list is because even though they had better regular seasons, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, you name it, every time they stepped into the kingdom, the king came out on top.
100%.
And the king stayed the king. Now, here's the thing. I'm willing to walk to this. Let's see if we can meet in the middle here.
Okay.
I have Mahomes still as the number 1 guy.
Yeah.
But I am opening up to the top 4 or 5 to now. It is now the race is not, she is not such a prohibitive favorite that it is like we are talking about him and everybody else. Like when LeBron was at the top of his game, we were talking about LeBron and the rest of the league. Mm-hmm. When Jordan was at the top of his game, we were talking about Jordan and the rest of the league. And we saw guys get MVP trophies. We saw guys get, multiple MVP trophies while still acknowledging the fact that Jordan or LeBron was the best player, year in, year out. That's what this is to me.
That's what crazy, this is, by the way.
What? You don't think so?
No, I'm saying, no, you're right. But I'm saying that's crazy that Mike was sitting there, and we were like, you know what? Boy, that David Robinson, that Karl Malone, that and Mike's in there like.
And you know what? And if Mahomes runs off 2 of the next 3 Super Bowls and is, his stats comparable, we might sit back and look, you know what? That was really dumb, that conversation we had on, man, July 15th. You're really looking for something to talk about, huh? The thing I'll go to about the NFC guys that are ahead of him, because all that's true for the AFC. If you wanted to just have blanket the best 4 quarterbacks in the AFC, make that statement, then I would be like, all right, cool, I get you. But I'll tell you what the issue is with the NFC quarterbacks, because to me, the top 4 unassailably are in the AFC. The issue with the NFC quarterbacks and why they're ahead of Jalen Hurts, we'll do that next.
But Martin, get back to you had a point you were making about the NFC quarterbacks in comparison to the number 9th ranked quarterback in Jalen Hurts.
So I'm looking at this last on this list is the first NFC quarterback on the list. Right, as I'm going down it, double-checking. Yes, the first NFC quarterback on the list is Jaden Daniels at 5. Then you go Stafford at 6, Justin Herbert at 7, Jared Goff at 8, and Jalen Hurts at 9. 10 Baker Mayfield to round it out. Now, the biggest quibble I would have here is with Justin Herbert being above. But when you look at those guys, the Stafford, Herbert, and especially Stafford and Herbert, I should say, and Daniels to a lower extent, but Stafford and Herbert for sure. Those are the guys that when scouts and players, other coaches talk about them, they gush about their processing, their arm strength. They're making every throw. You know what I'm saying? It's about the way that they're playing, right? Jaden Daniels, another one, as a guy who's not quite with the making every throw in the same way, but dynamic weapon, the way Cliff Kingsbury had him operating, dual threat. Is he the best dual threat since Michael Vick type? Right. So you see that, and then you watch what Jalen Hurts is doing, and like the tush push, it's not sexy. Like all those, in terms of football sexy, those 3 got it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's the thing it gets to me. And when Jared Goff, I would have, if you wanted to have Jalen Hurts above Jared Goff, I wouldn't agree with you, but I'm not going to have the biggest argument with you. So I think when you go through the AFC joints, when you go through the AFC parts of it, I see these are the best quarterbacks in the game, and you're now, to me, juggling who's the top 1 out of Lamar, Josh, and Patrick.
Yep.
And then I think Joe is right there if you really want to hold him for how bad the defense and all that play last year. But I think Joe Burrow is a top 7 quarterback just off of if I was starting a team.
That far down there. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying if I'm just being as lowest I could possibly go, lowest I would go with Jalen Hurts is probably right around 10. So I think this is about right.
I think more than anything, it goes down to, again, what Sirianni was saying is how he's talked about the respect on his name. But the challenge is, again, you have a quarterback renaissance right now where during the era, it was kind of Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, the rest of y'all. And there was a good rest of y'all. You've got to be Phillip Rivers, whether it's been, obviously, Aaron Rodgers kind of peaks in there at some point. But then you had Ben Roethlisberger. So on the really nice Drew Brees, you had some really good guys. But this young crop, again, as you mentioned, when you just look at the arm talent, you're like, whew. But Justin Herbert is going to have to start showing me something because he's had a bit more regular season success than the person I'm going to name. But the way people gush about him, as you mentioned, Trevor Lawrence, just don't understand. This arm is so big. He was made to be a quarterback. Look how big, 6'5". Oh, and I hear him. And when he makes some throws, do we all go, okay. What is he, a right-handed Dan Marino? Kind of has that appeal to it. But you start to kind of go, all right now, like, I'm going to start to need some of these wins to add up because what will happen, Martin, is we'll be year 8, 9, 10 of him with a playoff win or 2. And you'll be like,
I'm with you.
All right now. Like, okay, I get it, but Jalen Hurts is doing what you asked the quarterback position to do.
To the point, I think that Kyler Murray is a more talented quarterback than Jalen Hurts. I would be standing on the table yelling the madness that is this list if Kyler Murray was rated above Jalen Hurts.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that's where I was like, that's where I get into Herbert. I'm like, I'm not quite there yet. But you look at like Goff at this point got some playoff games on the wall.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels with a playoff win.
I mean, Goff been in the Super Bowl too.
Right.
Yeah. And you know who else I think is using this as fuel? And if you and I are doing this next year, we'll start to have a conversation again. Like, does he need to be 7, 8, 9, 10? I think Brock Purdy. Because, again, based off of at the end of the day, what's the expectation for a quarterback? I've been to a
Sure.
couple of NFC Championship. I've done this. I've done that. I was an MVP candidate. And again, I think he can look at some of these other guys and be like, all right, just a couple of them. Like, what has he done that I haven't? What has Justin Herbert done that I haven't done? I've way past him, dwarfing him when it comes to playoff success. So I think there's a couple of guys who are maybe on the outside, Brock Purdy being one, like, all right, okay. And getting his Denzel vibe of, in training day. I'm, about the Pelican Bay on y'all. So that to me, and that's the best part about these lists is you get conversation started, and then also if you're a Brock Purdy, use that as fuel. Ephraim Salaam, former NFL offensive lineman, Fox Sports Radio weekend host, Ephraim Salaam on X. What up, E?
What's happening, brothers? How y'all doing?
Good, man. Just having a conversation about the top 10 quarterbacks, and more specifically this time around, we were talking about Jalen Hurts. He was ranked 9th. Nick Sirianni said, some blankety blank. I can't say it on the air, but I'll paraphrase. Essentially, he just thinks it's disrespectful how people regard Jalen Hurts and how he's being penalized for doing what he's asked to do of his team. And ultimately, it amounts to wins. I'll speak for myself real quick, and Martin can kind of give his, and then just get your thoughts. My point is Jalen Hurts, while it isn't always necessarily aesthetically pleasing, while if it was a dual shootout with a passing quarterback, you maybe don't pick him, one of the top guys. But if the ultimate judgment of a quarterback is winning, and that's how we're doing Patrick Mahomes, who has not been the greatest over the last couple of years, but we still have him number one because of that, Jalen Hurts should have something to say in that regard as well, and I do believe that.
Yeah, Ephraim, my point was basically when you look at the other quarterbacks ahead of him, with the exception of Herbert, I think you've seen enough postseason success, and there's a little projection in there with Jaden Daniels. But the thing that I think that Jalen Hurts brings to the Eagles that is not quantified is the leadership, the durability, I can't imagine the tush push is fun, but it's a real weapon, and it's undeniable at this point, to the point the competition committee is weighing in on it. So I think that if you have him as 9th, that's fine. He's also very, very important to what the team does, and they would not be winning in the same way without him.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with where he's located at all. The one criticism we had about the Eagles, and they had it about themselves, or they weren't throwing the ball down the field. This is the same team that had a all-pro receiver reading the literature on the bench because he was being underutilized. So, I mean, that in itself tells you everything you need to know about the actual guy who's passing him the ball, because that's what we measure quarterbacks on. Their ability to throw the ball down the field, their ability to take over a game when you're down, 6, 7, 8, 12 points in the fourth quarter and you can't run the ball anymore. Can you get them back in the game? And I think all the quarterbacks above him on that list have shown the propensity to do that. But they won the Super Bowl. They had Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley had an historic year, one of the greatest years any player at the running back position has had since Eric Dickerson. So when we're talking about where he's ranked and not ranked, he's not a pure passer, so we shouldn't hold him to that standard. He's a good quarterback. He's a winning quarterback, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but is he going to throw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in a season? Probably not.
Let me ask you about somebody else that we just talked about. And I said, I see the talent. I think he is a really good quarterback. But, again, ultimately, I'm going to have to start seeing more success and him making better decisions in the postseason. That's Justin Herbert. We all know that raw talent is there. He's really good. But at a certain point, all right, now, I'm going to need to start seeing you accumulate some more wins. Where do you put him? Because he was, 6th on this list. And again, when do we start requiring more from him after the regular season?
Well, I think his first 4 years in the league, he was hamstrung by an inept coach who had no business being a head coach.
That's fair.
And the Chargers, time and time again, kept trying to revisit that well, and we all knew. I mean, it became a thing. It became an adjective. Can you Charger this win away?
Yep.
Right? Like,
yep.
So
how can they lose this one?
Like, it became comical. But yet he's still throwing, you got to remember, he's thrown for more yards than anybody at this point in their career ever. So that in itself lets you know that he's a gunslinger. He has an arm. And if he would have had the level of competence at the head coaching position, as some of the other great quarterbacks early in their career, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But now he's got Harbaugh. They went to the playoffs last year. Now he's going to be measured. Hey, there is no excuse. There is no reason now. What are you going to bring to the table, and can you take that next step? Can you win playoff games? Can you get to the conference championship and possibly to the Super Bowl?
Ephraim Martin Weiss here, Ephraim Salam here on Fox Sports Radio, joining us on The Odd Couple. Patrick Mahomes just got, well, he's not a new right guard. I should say, let me rephrase this. Trey Smith just got a brand new contract, $70 million guaranteed, 94 over $4 million and over 4 years, and it's now the highest paid center guard combo in the NFL with Creed Humphrey. Juwan Taylor, the right tackle, makes $20 million a year. Gets a ton of penalties, and they've kind of drafted the offensive tackle with their first round pick. But we saw in the Super Bowl, protection was rough for them. This Trey Smith gave up 2 playoff sacks. Kansas City has invested, it seems to me, a lot of the same guys that were there already. What's your thought?
I mean, Trey Smith is one of the top guards in the league. The one thing you can't do is measure an offensive lineman's worth on a game, a play, or a few. You have to look at the totality of his work. And Trey Smith is one. I knew he was going to reset the guard market when he was up. That's why they franchised him, because it was going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more nuance to get his deal done. But you got to remember, this kid is a 6th-round draft pick, right, who's fought his way and clawed his way to being a key member of, three Super Bowls
right,
with the Chiefs, 2 wins. And so he deserves every cent. They understand that Patrick Mahomes goes as the offensive line goes. He was under siege in that Super Bowl against a vaunted defensive front from the Philadelphia Eagles. So they're going to do the only 2 times Patrick Mahomes has lost the Super Bowl, the line hasn't been up to par.
Right.
That's the only time. And so I don't care what receiver or tight end, the only way to get Patrick Mahomes off the field is to make him feel uncomfortable and not have an offensive line. They've invested in that, and I'm happy for Trey. He's like a little brother to me. Spent a lot of time talking to him during the season, as well as other young guys. But you gotta pay those guys up front. The world and the war is won up front with offensive and defensive linemen.
And we saw that. I mean, the Eagles are the case study for that on both sides of the ball. I got one more.
Absolutely.
I got one more from me. Because you played in the NFL all those years doesn't mean you don't know other stuff. You are a hooper at heart too. We'll talk NBA with you.
No, I hoop. Yeah,
I know,
that's why I would prefer NBA. Football easy, man. Let's do NBA.
Great. So let me throw this at you. You're also a Laker fan. LeBron right now, currently, we saw him at Summer League. He dapped up Rob Pelinka, so I don't know what that means, because we know there seems to have reports are some disconnect between he and the Lakers. You got Scoop B. Brandon Jackson, he was on with us, Robinson, he was on with us yesterday. He said, he got the 4 list of teams that have made some calls to the Lakers about LeBron. If he were to move, you got the Cavs, the Mavs, the Warriors, and the Clippers. Those are the 4 he reported. What do you make of where LeBron is right now with the Lakers? And if he were to dip, where's the best fit? Bars.
Well, I mean, as long as LeBron's going to be a Laker, he brings value to the team. If he decides that he wants to go, I believe he has a no-trade clause, so he has to pick and decide where he wants to go. I think only 2 players in the league, him and Bradley Beal, have no trade clauses, so it's essentially, where does LeBron want to go? If that's the case, then it would probably the Dallas Mavericks, getting back with Kyrie and AD. I think 2 players that LeBron enjoyed playing with, that won championships with. But I don't see how they can pull that off. They're not going to give up Cooper Flag or anything other. They couldn't give us anything back worth of LeBron James to help really put them over the hump in terms of being a playoff and a championship team. So as of right now, those other, going back to Cleveland, no, unless Bronny's part of the package, I really don't think LeBron James wants to leave playing with his son. I think he got a kick out of it last year. I think he understands how much his son is learning from him, being on the team with him. And as long as that's possible, I think it's going to go. Like anywhere he's traded to, Bronny has to be part of that package. And now we start talking about too many moving pieces. So, we'll see, though. Anything's possible.
Anything is possible. And they talk about moving pieces. At some point, I think he does want to play with Bryce, too, after he gets his 1 year in college. So that's a whole nother story we'll have at some point.
Bryce might need more than 1 year. But Bronny did, too. Who knows, man? I don't know if LeBron will have the cachet again to pull off a Bronny James move again. So I don't know.
There's always the 55th pick. We'll see.
From the Fox Sports
All right, from the Fox Sports Studios. Thank you, E. Appreciate it, man, as always.
Absolutely.